Let's say you have a 2-month timeline, a 3-month timeline, or longer. There's typically 3 phases of studying I would recommend. There's accuracy, which is working untimed, then pacing, which is doing individual timed sections, and then finally endurance with full-length 5-section exams. And you don't want to jump ahead of yourself on this. A lot of times students will do a timed diagnostic cold without any studying, and they'll typically do pretty poorly. I certainly did. I started off in the low 150s. And that's not where I expected to start off, because I thought I was good at tests and good at academics and such, but the LSAT was way more than I ever expected it to be. It ended up being much more like learning a foreign language than like something you could cram for, especially if you're coming from more of a humanities or pre-law background. So give yourself the time to learn the material first, untimed, just focusing on accuracy, however long it takes. And you want to work systematically. One of the biggest things I focused on over my time as an LSAT coach is crafting LSAT study plans, specifically week-by-week study plans and then day-by-day study plans. And the day-by-day study plans ended up being one of my most popular LSAT study materials because they lay out exactly what to do specifically every single day over the course of your prep, whether you're going on for a 1-month timeline, which I definitely wouldn't recommend, to a 2 to 3 month timeline or beyond. Most people typically study over a 2 to 3 month period, and that's how a lot of traditional in-person prep classes are structured. But I don't really recommend it. It's not really typically enough for students to reach their fullest potential. It ended up taking me over a year to go from the low 150s to a 175 on test day. And I'm not saying that it should take you that long. I definitely wouldn't recommend it. But I also didn't study smart. And I'm hoping that if you follow my study plans, you'll avoid making the same mistakes that I did. So I typically recommend students study for a period of 5 to 6 months total in order to reach their fullest potential. But whatever your timeline is, I've got study plans for you. The week-by-week ones are free. The day-by-day ones are $20 to $25, depending on which ones you get. But ultimately, what they do is they break it down into those 3 phases: accuracy, then pacing, then endurance. And specifically within each portion, I tell you which articles to read on my site, which pages to read in a book like LSAT's Super Prep, and then which specific LSAT prep test problems to complete from the books of 10 published by LSAT. And those books of 10 are typically around $20 or so on Amazon, and they're the best study material because they're real LSAT questions. Now, in the study plans, I'll show you how to study systematically within each category. So let's say you want to learn logic games, which is one of the toughest sections of the LSAT at first. I'd recommend doing logic games in a particular order, not just doing them out of the books of exams in chronological order. You could do individual games by type. So do ordering games, then grouping games, then combination games, going from easy to hard, meaning that you're doing the easiest ordering games first, then the moderate difficulty ordering games, then the toughest ordering games, then do the same with grouping, the same with combination, and all the various other types. And then, of course, I lay out the same for the various types of logical reasoning questions and so on. But the biggest thing I want you to avoid doing is simply doing sections of logic games without seeing the patterns within them, because the LSAT really is a lot about pattern recognition. Like I said, you can't memorize this exam. It's about a way of thinking. And if you've just done a couple of sections of games where they're all kind of scrambled around, you're not necessarily going to see the common threads between different types of games. And so I want you to go about it systematically with a plan of attack. And you don't have to use my study plans, of course, but I've laid them out for you, and you can check out the week-by-week ones for free. And I can send Professor Peabody a link to those if he wants to share it with all of you.